Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Lizzie Strauss. I am the regional representative for the University of South Carolina. I actually live right here in New Jersey, not too far, just up north, about 30 minutes from here. So I'm your contact for all things South Carolina. Yeah, happy to be here and happy to answer any questions you guys may have. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Sote. I'm the Assistant Director for Transfers at the College of New Jersey. You are correct in hearing that correctly. I most likely will be working with the transfer population, but I am a jack of all trades and can work with you and your families as you continue moving forward with the process of applying to TCNJ. We don't have a specific counselor on staff that works directly with your school or your area, so anybody on our team can answer any and all your questions, hence why you got me tonight. But we're here to have a good time and give you all the answers you need, so thank you for coming out.
Hello, my name is Dana Hassel. I'm the regional representative for the University of Pittsburgh. If you have had a chance to visit us, great. If not, the virtual thing is still available. The two things that I want you to take away from our meeting today is that the University of Pittsburgh will continue to be test optional through 2023, and we have a brand new school for students to choose coming in. I am here locally, and I do have another representative that assists in South Jersey, so we will have the benefit of having two representatives from the University of Pittsburgh for you tonight. What's the name of school? Public one. Public health.
Hello, everybody. My name is Suzanne Schaefer. I am not related to your Mrs. Schaefer. And I am here from Rutgers University, New Brunswick. I'm sure you've mostly heard of Rutgers. We have a pretty big presence here in the state of New Jersey as the flagship state university. I am in charge of out-of-state recruitment, actually, but I also have my New Jersey territory of Morris County and Upper Passaic. So I am your representative on campus for New Brunswick. We don't have any new schools, but I also just had a student go through this process who's a freshman in college, and I have a junior, so I know what it's like to be in your shoes, and I'm happy to talk to everybody about this.
All right. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Jill Wall. I am the representative from the University of Scranton, which is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. If I have any office fans, hopefully you've heard of Scranton. But I am the admissions counselor for Northern New Jersey. Morris County is not one of my main counties, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions tonight, to kind of work with you throughout the process. I'm a Scranton alum. I graduated in 2019, so pretty recently. I was in your shoes not all that long ago. You know, I'm kind of old now. But whatever questions you have, I'd be more than happy to answer and to tell you more about Scranton.
I'm going to get us started with the first question, and as we go through, not all 5 reps need to answer, certainly, but anybody who wants to answer can. I had a student in my office recently, real worked up about the college essay. Mr. Furry, this is my only chance. This is all I have to tell them what I need to do. What can I write? And I couldn't get the student to calm down. Help me get him calm. Help me get other people in the room calm that are worked up about the college essay. What should they know about the college essay?
I'll go first, if you don't mind. So the easiest thing that I tell families is I found my college essay not too long ago, and I'm surprised that I got into college. So if I could do it, you could certainly do it. Moral of the story is, listen, it's a lot easier for us to say up here, don't stress out about the essay. At the same time, you're sitting there already stressed out about the essay. Relax, go into it, with an open mind. It's the closest thing of who you are as a person that we're going to be able to see and read about. Instead of looking at numbers and grades, which all kind of at the end of the day look identical to each other as we go through the process, the essay is really the only part about the application who you as a student individual can shine. Telling us about what you're involved in, who you are, the way you write, what your academics are like, whatever it is that you're writing about. And we've read everything up here, from good essays to really bad essays, to really funny essays, to really sad essays. We've read all of them. So don't think that what you're writing is so outlandish. Don't think that this is my only shot in. It really is a way to express who you are as a person and ways that we can see that person flourish on our campuses. So it's a lot easier for us up here to say, don't stress out about it, but really at the end of the day, just have fun with the essay. Be yourself, be authentically you, and then before I turn it over to anybody else here, just have somebody else proofread it. You never know what they will pick up and read what school you're applying to before you send it out to the school that you're not applying to. So just proofread it and maybe proofread it a second time. So that's my little advice.
I would also say, don't worry about what you think we want to hear. Tell us what you want to tell us, something about you. I also spent many years as a college counselor, actually, at another school, and I would say that my other thing is that people tend to take this a little too seriously. Students get very hung up on the fact that they need to talk about something that was life-changing. I generally say, stay away from the D words: death, disease, divorce, drama, depression, because they're not fun. You know, you'll write about something that you feel very strongly about in the best way. So if it's something you like or something you feel strongly about, I mean, you could have strong feelings negatively, but stick with the positives generally. Don't feel like you have to tell us that you changed the world. Some of the best essays I've read have been things about, like, a nickname, or, you know, I don't care if you really write about why the sky is blue and the grass is green, if it's something that you're passionate about. So it's really something that is very much what you want to tell us about you. Don't worry about what you think we want to hear.
I'd just like to add one more thing. We, larger schools, we read lots and lots of essays, thousands of essays. There's no right or wrong answer. It's the one part of the application that you really control. And so, like we said, don't take it too seriously. Tell us what you want us to know about you, and yes, have fun.
Anybody in the audience have a question they'd like to ask? And again, this is your evening, your chance to ask as many questions as you like. Well, thank you. I mean, I got a slew of them. I can rattle them off.
Question: ACT versus SAT. Any preferences? None. What's your thoughts on that one?
You want to talk about optional? You already addressed your optional.
I opened the door. So, University of Pittsburgh will continue to be test optional until the end of the cycle of 2023. Okay, and then we will review. We will review and determine from that point on. However, we have no preference whether you take the ACT or the SAT, whatever you are more comfortable with. We tell students maybe try them both out. You might do better on one. Now that the ACT is having our own little super scoring type of thing, whatever they send us, we're going to take the best score from either set of tests that you send to us. And so we're going to do whatever is going to make you look the best. But overall, you're not going to get probably any one of us to tell you not to submit scores or to submit scores. If you feel that your test scores, after you're looking at them, are a true representation of you as a student, or they truly enhance your application, that's a personal decision. If you should always discuss that as a family. Don't try to make that kind of decision on your own, because you can get caught up in your own trees. And just, you know, think about if they truly represent you as a student.
We're all optional this year, at least.
I would like to just add one point. If you are planning on not submitting any test score, and you're going for education in the state of New Jersey, I would recommend possibly still just submitting those test scores, because it can help out with your certification when you go to take your testing for praxis tests. So using that information can help you with those praxis tests with your academic advisor in education. So if you are not thinking about submitting your tests for academic or admissibility reasons, but you're going for education, maybe that would be a part that after admitted, you would submit them for that benefit moving forward. But that's a whole other story that we could talk about at a later date. just to kind of put that little seed in your head as well too.
And there are, I mean, so Rutgers New Brunswick is optional, but there are some programs out there, not at New Brunswick, but there is one at Newark that requires scores, which is the BAFMD program.
Correct.
So there are programs out there, even if the school is optional, you might just make sure that the program that you're applying to is also.
Just kind of piggyback off that, Scranton used to have, as recently as last year, had 3 programs that require test scores. We're now test optional for every single program. So regardless of what you're applying for, you can choose whether or not you want to submit test scores. If you have scores and you want to reach out to me or another counselor and kind of talk about them with us, we would be happy to kind of have those conversations with you. Again, like she said, we can't tell you whether or not you should or should not submit them. That comes down to what you feel is best, but we'll definitely have that conversation with you.
And then to, I guess, be the tail end. So at South Carolina, once again, if you choose to submit test scores, we'll prefer either or we don't have a preference as far as SAT versus ACT. Totally up to you guys. We also super score both exams and take the higher of the two as well. Really, Dana nailed it on the head as far as what we do as well. But students that choose not to submit test scores are not at any disadvantage when it comes to admissions or merit scholarships, honors college review, anything like that. So we had plenty of students last year during our first year of being test optional who were admitted, ultimately got scholarships without test scores. So like everyone's also said, we can't advise one way or the other, but we can always have a chat to go over recent year averages, everything like that, how you guys are feeling. Another thing to note is if you're kind of on the edge of deciding, I know there's that October test coming up, and I can, again, only speak for USC at this moment, but we will have those scores submitted in time for reaction review, just on a specific note, so just wanted to add that in there too.
I have a follow-up to this test question. How the heck do you know if a student can get in without test scores? Right? I mean, forever we had to have the GPA, we had to have the test scores. What are you looking at then?
The essay.
That didn't help.
I'm just kidding. I knew, it was softballed up there.
I'll start, I guess. So USC still goes through a holistic review process. Without test scores, obviously, when you're looking at the academics, we just have that transcript. I'm sure each of us might vary differently, but we'll only see freshman year through junior year grades. We will look at any rigor that was taken, obviously the curriculum of your specific high school, any success in the classroom, any trends, but that includes the essay, looking at the Common App or the specific applications, extracurricular areas, volunteer work, employment, honors and awards. I'm trying to think. So there's not a specific, like when you're looking at a GPA that says if you hit this, it's an immediate yes, or with scholarships or anything like that. So it is a holistic review, and so yes, it is kind of tricky to say what your chances are, but that's kind of the process with holistic review, and it depends on specific applicant pool year to year, and that's just, I can only speak for myself once again, but at least looking at previous years' averages can kind of get you, in a mindset of what the typical admitted student, what those academics were looking like coming in.
I'll also just add on to that, because I'm a visual person as well. So if you're looking at the entire application process as a pizza pie, normal pies, larges come in 8 slices, and I'm also a little heftier, so this is why I like a food reference. 8 slices in a pizza. If you were to take away those 2 slices of SAT or ACT, the rest of the pie becomes bigger, meaning there's more emphasis on the remaining parts of the application. So if you're looking at it like that, we're going to hone in on more of what was being said, test score, or academics, rigor of those academics, how many classes are you taking here in the IB curriculum versus normal non-IB courses, how much are you involved outside of the classroom? COVID impacted a lot of things in terms of extracurricular-wise, but what are you doing extra outside of those events? How much information are you placing into the application that we're able to digest and review and see exactly who you are inside and outside the classroom, letters of rec, and all of those stuff then become heavier in the process without those 2 slices involved. So if you need a visual kind of cue, that would be my way to do it, but I'm also probably going to have pizza when I get home, so.
Although Brian was joking, the University of Pittsburgh, if you are going test optional, you will need to complete either the personal statement or the Common App essay if you're using the Common Application. And so you would need to provide some written type of narrative in place of the test scores. Not to put over stressing you again about the essay, but just a wonderful analogy. Just to look at other things, and that would be one of the topics that you may want to consider is why I'm not submitting test scores. You know, different topics come from anywhere, so be open to things like that. Not that we're moving back to the essay issue, but just to point that out, that we do require that if you're not submitting test scores. One or the other, not both.
Other questions from the audience? Sweet.
Touching on the IB program, my oldest son ended up at a college that did not accept any of his IB credits. Could you each share, if you do, I assume everybody accepts the AP credits, but curious about the IB, if you could just share if you accept that and how much of them. Thank you.
What I recommend for USC is we actually have a chart online of IB, AP, Cambridge credits, a full, huge, long list of everything that we accept and what kind of college credit is given each specific AP, IB, Cambridge exam there. So it's a lot of information there, so I recommend reaching out to the individual webpage, but I'll have that full list of everything each student could get credit for. But we do accept a large amount.
Yeah, we have the same thing, a legend online for all those courses. Usually, I think it's a 6 or 7 for IB credit to be added in on that test. APs are 4s and 5s. And then, you know, we review if you're taking any courses at the local community college for adding those in for credit. Our general rule of thumb at TC and J, if you're taking a 100 or 200 level course with C's or better, those more than likely will transfer in for credit. Yeah, but I mean, we have the legend online too.
Just to piggyback off of that, ditto. And also, this is a conversation that you absolutely need to have with the academic advisor because it differs from program to program. And there may be some courses that are part of a program that they want. I know that we do certain courses in the business school that must be taken on our campus. And so that may come into play, and where then those courses taken for IB or even the AP courses may just go to general electives or graduation requirements, other areas toward graduation, but not specifically toward a program. But that's a conversation to have with the advisor during that initial registration meeting.
Okay, so I'm sorry. Go ahead, because I actually am probably the exception here.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Scranton's pretty much the same as everybody who's spoken. They accept the credits. We'll see where they transfer, like she was saying. Even if it doesn't transfer to a specific program or major that you're interested in, it'll more than likely transfer to some type of free electives, general electives, some type of graduation requirement. You can find our full list online as well. And when you're in the application process, if you kind of narrowed your search down to a couple of schools, and Scranton is one of them, we'll do a full transfer credit evaluation for you at that point, so you know before committing if the credits will transfer over.
Okay, so we don't have this stuff online any place, and part of the reason is that at Rutgers, you actually apply to specific schools. So there are 7 undergraduate or programs that first-year students can apply to, and each one of those has different requirements and different things they're looking for. So for the School of Engineering, for example, they may say, we don't care what you got on that AP exam, IB exam in math, we're still making you take our calculus class. But somebody over in the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences may say, great, you got 4, or a 7, we'll give it to you. So we don't have it listed out. The individual schools do that evaluation. The general rule of thumb for most schools is 4s and 5s on APs, and 6 and 7 is on the IB. I'm really surprised to hear that there's schools that won't take that IB credit. That's very distressing, but it looks like all of us will. It's just that at Rutgers anyway, it's department by department a little bit.
And is that, Rutgers specifically, is that something that we would know prior to committing? Is that a conversation you could have beforehand, or it's only once you commit?
No, because you would only know, well, APs and IBs, you're self-declaring on your application anyway. So the first time that we actually get that report is sometime in July, which is well after the time that you've already committed to, to your school. And at that point, they'll evaluate credits and transfer credits and community college credits and things like that. So, no. But, I think to look at it in a different way, when you come in with AP, IB credits, it gives you some flexibility in your curriculum. Very rarely does a student accelerate or want to accelerate to a sophomore standing. I mean, you want to be careful. Even if you get a 5 on an exam or a 7 or, you may not want to take that. You can take the credit, but take the class. Sometimes it's the smarter move to, get on campus and take that hard level biology class, that everybody has to get through, than to try to accelerate out of it and end up over your head in an upper level class. But then you've got credits you're coming in with, which flexes you up to do something like a study abroad, or when you've got a really intense semester of labs, you could go one class short. So you've got that flexibility in your schedule. So they're always good. Definitely take them and get those credits and submit them. But then work with your advisor when you get to campus, whoever said that, to make to figure out the best way to do this.
Can I just touch on one other thing with IB testing or AP and whatever advanced rigor courses you're taking? I'd be remiss to mention with mental health and everything, if you are struggling in an IB or AP or college prep or whatever course you are, work with your school counselor now. In reviewing applications for TC&J, and this is TC&J exclusively, you may all have different opinions or you may have the same one. I would so much rather see a student with A's and B's in honors and college prep courses than C's, D's, F's, and AP's IB courses. It is not worth it to try and force yourself through that course to fail to have that reflected on your transcripts. So I wanted to just clarify that. If I went to the gym and tried to bench press 500 pounds, mentally I could do it, physically I couldn't. So just work within what your weight level is. And it's no slack to you as a student to say I need help. And looking at it as a school counselor or a teacher or telling your parents, I'm struggling in this course. What are suggestions that we can work on to make this easier for me? There's no, we're not looking at that in the admissions process going, this kid couldn't hack it. That's not what we're doing. We're looking to see what you're doing in those courses. So I just wanted to mention that because I would be remiss if I didn't with mental health and everything going on today. So if you are struggling in those courses, please seek your school counselor or your teacher or a parent or guardian to have those conversations. There's nothing wrong with doing that. So.
And the college process, searching for a school should emerge from who you're becoming as a student.
Right.
If you're, struggling in APs, well, yeah, okay, so Harvard's off the table now, so be it. But you've got, 5 schools up here that are not Harvard, who are going to be looking at you and interested in you, and there's many, many, many choices. Most of the schools in the United States are not as selective as people get hung up on. So again, I agree with you. Look at the classes that make sense for you. Take those classes that you're excited about. Don't take, the classes that you don't want. And this is a little late if you're all seniors, so I get it. But we really do want you to work within what you're doing.
I have a phrase that I always use. Nancy brought this up. Push yourself, but not over the edge. Challenge yourself. A seat is still a seat is still a seat. Okay, so absolutely, what my colleagues have said is totally true.
Hi, so I'm wondering about interviews and visits to colleges. I had 2 kids that went pre-COVID, and we did the interviews, we did the college visits and all that stuff. How do you get credit or how do you get acknowledgement from the university that you've done the interviews or you've done the college visit in the age of COVID? And then, is there something we should be doing special to let you know that we're interested in your university?
Do you demonstrate interest? Mm-hmm. Okay, so one, because the rest of us want to get help.
you'd like to
Okay, I'll go ahead and start. Yeah, so what she just mentioned, demonstrated interest. Basically, at Scranton, we keep track of everything that you or your child or your student does in relation to Scranton. So if you come for an in-person visit, which we are open for, and we were all through COVID, we keep track of that. If you came to a virtual panel or information session or some type of virtual event, there was a registration link that you had to fill out, so we keep track of that. If you send me an email saying, hi, my name is whatever, and I'm interested in Scranton, I keep track of that. So all of that comes into play once we are reviewing the applications and making our decisions. So we do have a system that tracks all of that. Every single interaction is something that looks good on your part. So even if it's literally just reaching out to say, hi, my name is Jill, I'm really interested in Scranton, I'm involved in this and this. That's something that sticks out to me, that's something that I'm going to remember, and it's something that'll look great on your part. So I would say for Scranton and for all the colleges up here and any college that you're interested in, check out what they're offering on their website, whether it's in person or virtual. Most schools, especially at this time of year, are offering lots of different opportunities.
Yes, we also track demonstrated interest at TC&J, so unfortunately we don't have the staff capacity to hold interviews for students on campus. That's something that we just unfortunately don't do. But I want to say that I think for all the students, I'm kind of jealous of you all, to be honest, because when I was looking at schools, you had a small window to look at schools, and this is the radius that your mom or dad gave you, and this is how far you could travel. You guys don't even know what you have available to you, and right on your computer. You could go and visit the University of Hawaii tonight, which is something that I was like, oh, I'll go visit Hawaii. My dad was like, yeah, right. So being able to have all these different options, whether it's being on campus, doing virtual events, whether it's here tonight or at a virtual information session if you can't make it to campus, or doing a campus tour or a virtual open house or an in-person open house or at a college fair or any of those ideas, being able to get in front of a college admissions counselor will help you out moving forward, because we eventually will start placing a face to the name. I memorized phone numbers when they call my office. I know exactly who's the good parents and who's the bad parent. I'm just kidding. That's not funny. But we start to figure out a track with who you are as a student. Now, obviously, you're not going to email me saying, hey, how's the weather at TC&J? I'm going to be just like you, wherever you are in New Jersey. Well, South Carolina might have a completely different answer for you, but I don't spam her with emails about what the weather is like in Columbia. So what I'm trying to say is the more information that we build about you, not only within your application, but the virtual or in-person visits, will help kind of stand out to a counselor, whether it be me or another member of our staff, because that is tracked information. We see when you come, just register for a visit. Visit.tcnj.edu. All of our virtual stuff is on there. All of our in-person stuff is on there. So we're more than happy to meet with you guys, whether it's virtually or in person, or email, or phone call, or text, or whatever it is that you prefer. We'll figure it out, but you guys are living in such a great time to apply to school that I'm so completely jealous. But I'm happy that I get to work at a school that gets to meet with all of you and live vicariously through you all. So. Long answer for a short answer.
This is probably balanced based on the size of the school. So the smaller the school, the more likely they are to track demonstrated interest. Those of us who are dealing with tens of thousands of applications and more, we can't. We honestly can't. So we're delighted when you come to campus. I really, we all have these great virtual options now. We built them up last year and they're all still there. So take advantage of it. But we have some in-person availability now. So if you want to come down, come on down. Sign up early.
I guess I'll just add one thing. Again, for South Carolina, we don't look at demonstrated interest or interviews in the review process, but informally, I am happy to ever, anytime, host a one-on-one Zoom with any student, anytime of year, just so that you can, gain information, knowledge about programs, the process, campus life, anything like that, because it is quite a trek to either fly down there or drive 12 hours plus just to see what might be an option for you. So ultimately, we want you to gain as much information as you can so that you can make the best decision for you and your family. But ultimately, it won't play a role. We do also encourage campus visits, like I just mentioned, just so that you can get a feel for whether or not it is going to be an option for you in the end. So we encourage that just so that you're gaining that knowledge.
And University of Pittsburgh, we do not engage pitch in demonstrated interest. However, we do keep track on a side, so when you are signing up for the virtual visits or you do come to visit, and it would only come into play if there was something that we needed to look at a little bit more, or looking at you a little bit more closely. Then we said, you know what, did they come to visit? Did they do this? And we'll see all that. Like, okay, they're really an interested student, but that doesn't mean that you have to front load and do that just in preparation. It's done on an individual basis. Obviously, you can't drive 5.5, 6 hours for an interview, and for that reason, we don't have mandatory interviews because it just wouldn't be fair. And so we also do the one-on-one Zoom meetings. We look at those, and everything's there. It's just not possible. But just not used in terms of determining your admission directly.
Hello. I actually have two questions. We just started 9th grade, so we still have a few years to prep. And my first question is, I see my son coming home doing a lot of video presentation and projects and all with the cell phone and everything else. So in the next few years, do you see the application process moving more towards a written essay to a video essay? We see some colleges that are promoting that. Is that something that you see moving in the future towards preferring that over the other? Because, and the reason I'm asking this, and that leads me to my second question, I'm observing all of his friends and all the kids nowadays, and pretty much they all kind of follow the same, not same, but the same template, like, okay, get good grades in all the classes, try to get as many AP classes, participate in a sport, or if you're not that athletic, then do some clubs and activities, and like how do you, it goes back to how do you, reviewing hundreds and hundreds of essays, how do you really differentiate, and how do you make the decision, like what are the, going back to actually one of the questions that was addressed prior, how do you look on an essay, how do you look at a candidate, oh, I'm going to admit this one in our school or not, is it a good fit or not, like, what, just kind of get a little bit more depth and insight in the
So, my favorite movie is Legally Blonde, and she submits a college essay. Do you know what I'm talking about? She submits an essay to Harvard Law. Anyway, on video, and she has it directed by a Coppola. But I don't think any of us are doing submission of video essays at this point, partially because there's still writing component to college. So we still do want to make sure that students can write using written language. So while I was saying don't be so serious, it's still a formal piece of writing. So make sure that you're not using slang and text that you might use in a text message to your friends. You're addressing me, and I'm not 21. But I think that's an interesting question, and I think what you're trying to get at is more like, how does one stand out among the group?
Yep.
I worked at more selective places than Rutgers, and Rutgers is pretty selective, but when a big school like Rutgers, the first thing we're looking at is still your high school transcript, although we actually do an SRAR, which is a self-reported academic record. But your classes, the grades you've gotten and the levels of those classes, it's still going to be king. That's the first hurdle you have to get through, no matter what. You could come to visit 700 times and you don't have the grades, you're still not getting in. You're talking at the most selective level of the, pieces, like what gets a kid into, and I'll pick on our New Jersey neighbor, Princeton, what gets them in? And it always makes sense when you see the kid who gets in and you're like, oh yeah, he's done this and that and the other thing. But it doesn't make sense when you see the next kid who didn't get in. Some of this is so subjective, but really what you want to do is make sure that your application presents you in the best light. So if a school is doing a video opportunity, some of them let you put in a link. A lot of us have security things that we can't actually click on links. So if you have a video and you put it in there, I might not be able to look at it. But if there are sections of
The applications, if a student has an artistic talent and they want to submit a portfolio, many schools will welcome that. If they have, something else they're doing, please, figure out how to put that in. The applications are becoming less and less flexible, to be honest. But I think that as long as you feel like your application represents you the best way it can through every piece of it, then that's what's gonna represent you. Can we give you the secret sauce about, what gets one kid in with versus another? Not really. I don't think any of us up here could tell you. So I'm sorry I don't have the answer on that, but as far as video goes, if schools are doing it, that would be really cool. The other thing that is important to realize is that when we are getting thousands and thousands and thousands of applications, we have a very limited amount of time to review each application. And even a 5-minute video would be more time than I would have to spend on an essay. As a matter of fact, for some schools, 5 minutes is what they spend on the entire application. So keeping that in mind, you want to make sure your application represents you, but represents you in a way that's very much easy to read. Does that make sense? Perfect.
I'm actually going to counter point your statement there. There's hundreds of schools out there that use a program called Zeemee, Z-E-E-M-E-E, which is a video essay. Unfortunately, TCNJ does not use that platform, but you can download it on your phone right now. You can play with the app. You can make a video submission, submit it to hundreds of schools across the country. I actually think that we need to start moving in a way that's more accessible for students to apply, whether it be a video essay or submitting links or anything like that. We have to start meeting students where they are. And many students are not able to do the application for whatever reason. So I actually like the idea of a video essay. If you put a link in your application, I'm watching it. I'm figuring out a way to get it. I'm watching it for if it's 10 minutes or 35 minutes. I'm gonna sit there and watch it. And this may be the benefit that we can review that compared to Rutgers and some of the larger schools up here, that we do have the time to process who you are as a student. If that is who you are, and you're into making films and doing video or doing art or submitting a portfolio and you submit it to us, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to review it. That is part of your application, and that's more information that I have to make a decision about who you are. The secret sauce, I don't think anyone can give you an answer to the secret sauce, because at the end of the day, there is no sauce. It's you as a student. That's who, populates the campus. Without you as a student on campus, we wouldn't have a job, we wouldn't be doing anything, and I don't even think we'd be here tonight. So what I'm trying to say is be authentically you and submit all that information that you can that shows you who you are in all of those aspects. And the other thing is, we are actively looking to admit you to the school. So at least, so unless anybody else is looking at ways to deny issuing a school, I don't think any of us here want to do. That's the worst part of our job, is issuing a denial letter. So we're actually looking for ways to admit you. So the more information, the more review process that we have to look at that stuff, to see who you are as a person, to be on campus, will benefit you moving forward. And I think this is the hardest thing to do in life, is to only worry about the things you can control. And this is the ultimate test for students to learn this lesson in terms of controlling what you can. You're submitting the application, you're doing the work now, you're in the classroom, you're preparing for that next step. You've done the work. Submit it and let us stress over if we could admit you or not, or if we could fit you into that cohort, or if you have a seat at the, in the education building, or whatever it may be. Let us stress out about that part, and you just stress out about meeting the deadlines, making sure your application is completed, and sending that all in, and then badgering your school counselors to make sure that everything's submitted. I'm just kidding. Don't want to sell you guys out either. So being on top of that are things you can control at this point. Having things submitted on time are things you can control. Let us worry about the back end stuff. Because at TCNJ, we're looking at each individual student individually, not everyone in the school versus everybody in the school. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit of insight about what our sauce is, even though there is no sauce.
Just building off of the videos and links and all that stuff, just maybe just two of you can answer, maybe Scranton and University of South Carolina. Social media footprint, does that have any effect? Is it something that you look at, or is it something that you only look at if it's brought to your attention?
Good question. I'll go first if you want. We don't generally look at social media. It's not part of our review process. It's not something that we'll actively seek out. If something was brought to our attention, there may be a situation where we do take a look at it, but it's not generally part of our practice to seek that out. I mean, still be careful on social media. Anything that you post is obviously out there for all colleges to see. So be careful, but we personally don't look too much at it.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Actively, we're not looking at any individual social media accounts. However, I know we've seen plenty of stories about students that made less than smart decisions on social media and how and maybe an admissions offer is ultimately rescinded or anything like that. So encourage you guys to make smart decisions, but we won't, in each individual review process be looking at any of that information. But if you, have that mindset that admissions offices could see that information, I think that's, the smart way to approach it. So.
Two questions, one for Rutgers and one for Pitt. So the Rutgers question is, my son's a junior and we were driving around on Sunday. We went to Rutgers, drove around New Brunswick, liked the campus. If you've got undergraduate interest in business, are those classes on the New Brunswick campus or are they elsewhere? So that's your question. And Pitt, we're coming to see you in November.
Okay.
What are your suggestions for coming to visit the campus?
So we'll be there in November. We're waiting for you. You can sign up through our visit days. It's right on our website. Lots of different places to click. Even if through my email, we have all the different buttons that you can just automatically get in there because we want you to come and see. Quick story on the side. My daughter was also, my husband and my daughter are all double alums. My daughter had no intention whatsoever of having anything to do with it because mom and dad went there until she visited. So we are so confident that once you come to visit us, you'll love us, that we can set up either individual, we did have individual tours. We haven't quite gotten that back yet, but we have different programs already established where you can, small groups, you can bring family members. We don't have any extensive inside certain buildings yet, so we're still being very, very cautious. We do still have to mask in our buildings. So we are there to see you whenever you are ready. The website is all, and it rotates. So, is there another question you have for me? Or no? Okay.
No.
Pitt has a great campus, by the way, and if you go, have a Permane brother sandwich.
Yes.
Lots of great, yeah, no. So Rutgers New Brunswick is actually located in two different towns. So we are half in New Brunswick and half in Piscataway, which is why you hear about the Piscataway Stadium at times. It's all Rutgers New Brunswick. So Newark and Camden have their own campuses, but Rutgers New Brunswick has 4 neighborhoods. So we have a lot of students, but the neighborhood setup does help it make it feel a little smaller. The 4 neighborhoods, and if any of you were alums, these have changed a little bit in terms of names. The Bush campus, which is where the stadium is, the one that was kind of half underwater recently, and that's where a lot of our STEM programs are. The Livingston campus is where the business school is. It's where a lot of our upperclassmen housing is. It's where our the RAC is too, where the basketball team plays, and the diner and cinema are there. College Avenue campus is the one you probably drove around, although my argument would be at every campus, don't just drive around, get out of your car, because you can never really truly see a college campus unless you walk onto the quad. So that would be definitely a piece of advice that I would give you. The College Avenue campus is sort of the home of arts and sciences, and then down the street is Cook Douglas, which is the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences and Mason Gross School of the Arts. So they were housed and homed in those 4 neighborhoods, but your classes are going to be on all the campuses. Students can live on any of the campuses. Each of the neighborhoods has its own dining center, living, housing, fitness centers, and they're all connected by our little Rutgers bus system, which is not necessarily anybody's favorite part of Rutgers, but it is an adulting experience. So, because the mass transit system in Chester is so prevalent, you'll get to know how to use a bus and make your way around. And it's still definitely an important thing for students to know as they move into New York and things like that. So the layout, what you saw was College Avenue most likely in the New Brunswick area, and on that side of the river. The other side of the river is Livingston and Bush.
I did want to add one other thing. If we just recently met with all of our different schools, if you are interested in business, you can set up your visit so that you can have a general tour either later Friday in the afternoon and joint with a tour of the College of Business Administration, and also Monday early in the morning, and they will have I think it's an 11:30 tour for the College of Business Administration, so you can have a 9-11, so you can kind of get both schools. Some of the other schools are also working to do a kind of Friday and Monday thing to accommodate out-of-town visits over the weekend as well.
I have a financial question. So if you opt not to fill out the FAFSA, so how do you determine what the expected financial, the family contribution will be? Is it going to be whatever the sticker price is, or is there generally some money that is granted even if you don't know the financial aid form?
As a person who just dealt with the FAFSA myself, so the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. The federal government is the actual person or group that will determine what your estimated family contribution is. So they determine that EFC. They're the ones who make these judgment calls about how much they think we can afford, which is really, really inaccurate. But anyway, the schools then take that amount, and most of us work in admissions, not financial aid. Financial aid offices have a whole separate office. Do you do financial aid? No. No. You do financial aid? Okay. So some of us do financial aid, some of us don't. And so maybe I'll let you answer this. But the EFC is then taken by the school and looked at based on the cost of the school, and then the university generally says, all right, what's the difference between what the family contribution is that the federal government said and what is our cost? And then they try to work with that. And some are more successful at it than others. I mean, one of the things that you will find as you're going through this process is don't eliminate schools based on their cost, because you're going to find that some of them give very generous financial aid packages, and it might, I'm selling my own school out here right now, so don't listen to me on for Rutgers, but we're only $28,000. It's really inexpensive to go to Rutgers. So if you're trying to compare financial aid packages that from Rutgers to, Boston University at $80,000, it's going to be pretty different. But you've got to look at the total cost and what you're going to end up paying out of pocket. I created spreadsheets last year, frankly. What was the cost, what they gave us, and I would encourage you to do the same.
The only other thing that I would add to that is when you complete the FAFSA, that EFC figure, that belongs to you. So that goes from institution to institution. It's the same number. The only time that changes is when you have additional students who are enrolled at least half-time, and then they will divide that up. I kind of would give presentations about the financial aid. We are the Office of Admissions and Financial Aid. I just do admissions, but I am actually a Boomerang employee. I was financial aid for many, many years. And so I try to simplify it as much as possible, and saying that everybody, has $5 in their wallet. But whether you shop at Bloomingdale's or Macy's or the dollar store will determine how much you can get for that $5. And so shopping around, asking what kind of programs. One of the things that the University of Pittsburgh has done in the last 2 years is we have done a Pell Match program for those students completing the FAFSA and being awarded a Pell Grant. We will match that dollar for dollar. And I think that had a significant impact on our ranking. I'm just going to brag just for 1 second here. #1 public institution in the Northeast. And so that takes into consideration not all of our academic programs, but student satisfaction and cost as well. And so those type of things, what are you getting for your investment? What are you getting for your dollar needs to be taken into consideration, and that's a decision that you would make as an individual.
While we're on finance financial aid and finances, I think this is a good point to recognize that parents and guardians in the room tonight, as much as you want to be involved in the process of helping your son or daughter find the school that they want to go to, it works the other way around. So if you're asking for all of this information, but holding back on how much you could afford, or working to afford, or figuring out what the family could afford, or whatever that may be, having that open conversation with your student now, while maybe awkward at first, will open more doors moving forward. I'm sure if whoever up here, I know everybody's admissions policies, but with early decision, each year I speak with at least 5 families who say, well, why can't we afford it? What happened? We're early decision. What's going on? Those are heartbreaking conversations to have because I don't know what to tell you. Nothing changed overnight. We presented the information up front, so having those awkward financial conversations tonight, over the weekend, whatever they may be, prior to being admitted and looking over the financial aid and what you're awarded and what you can afford, having that conversation about what we're looking at financially now, like I said, maybe awkward at first, but will open up significant doors in terms of those conversations back and forth to help your student find the best possible fit. And I always put students and families in 4 buckets. So the first bucket being, I, the student, myself, will be taking out all the loans. Bucket 2, mom and dad are paying for everything. Bucket 3, mom and dad, me, the student, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncles are all contributing and helping out. And bucket 4, I don't have any idea where these buckets are. Does Home Depot sell them? Where are they? So having that conversation now, you can identify which bucket you place yourself into and how moving forward at that point, cost of tuition, merit scholarships, EFC will all play a factor in that and how that bucket shifts. But having that awkward conversation now will open up more doors for you moving forward to have that excitement when your son or daughter is admitted to a school that you can actually afford looking at everything regardless of the sticker price up front, looking at it now. So hopefully that helps.
There's also one other thing. There's a second form. I don't know that any of us need it, but the CSS profile form is an additional financial aid form that some schools do require, so you might want to keep your eyes out for that if you're applying. And all of us are required to have on our websites an early estimate form. So if you plug in your information, if you go on any of these schools, plug in your information, the more accurate you are, the better the estimate will be. But you can get an idea of how much approximately you might be paying for that school. So every school is required to have that by federal law.
Hi, I'm wondering about your honors programs. What type of student are you looking for? What are the benefits, pros and cons of the honors program?
I'll start.
The University of Pittsburgh has an honors college. When students apply initially, they can check off on the actual application whether they want to be considered for honors. The only additional piece of information that we would be looking at would be a specific essay. We're back to the essay again. The essay, but I can tell you what the question is. It hasn't changed in 2 years. If you could change anything about the world, what would it be, how, and why? And so that's what we look at. But first, before a student would be considered for either scholarships or the honors college or our graduate admissions programs where we hold a spot for you, they first have to be admitted to the university, and then they are reviewed by those 3 programs separately, so the students would know. In terms of what we're looking at, we're looking for a student who is an out-of-the-box thinker, someone who is assertive with their thirst for knowledge, and not just the typical strong academic student, but how you are well-rounded as a person. One of the things that's available through our honors college is the Bachelor of Philosophy degree. Usually that's reserved for Ivy League institutions, but we are very honored to be able to extend that through our honors college. And we take about 600 students. And if students aren't initially accepted into our honors college, this is the only time we engage in demonstrated interest. You become an honors grouping for the first year. You go to all their programs. You can take certain courses that they pre-select, and you just hang out and do everything with them. Set your grades on fire for the first year and reapply. And you have a very strong turnaround for the students who are accepted to honors.
I'll go ahead and chime in. So we actually have the nation's top public honors college at USC. We have just under 5,000 that apply every single year. There is a separate application process, a separate review process, an additional 2 letters of recommendation, 2 essays, and a short answer question. We spend the entire month of December reviewing all applications. Trying to kind of think of where to start. So we have about just over 500 that are ultimately enrolled every single freshman year. We have a separate honors residence hall on campus. But some of the things that ultimately lead to us having a top program are definitely going to be, the faculty that are teaching our specific honors courses. Some of those opportunities that are given to those students, they're specific honors advisors working with them through research opportunities, internship opportunities, ultimately their career paths, any professional school that might ultimately come after their bachelor's degree. Some of our special, direct entry into med school programs that are just reserved for honor students. And so not every class, it is a 4-year program, so it's a full separate program, but not every class is an honors class. About 45 hours of the 120 hours are ultimately going to be honors level. Those classes are not necessarily more challenging, which is a question that we get a lot, but it's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be slightly smaller, more interactive. Again, you'll also have classes with alternate types of majors. There's also not one specific major that we're looking whenever we're reviewing applications. And so we've got all different types of incoming programs. We're looking at students that definitely excel in the classroom, but we want to see what's going on outside the classroom too. So those letters of recommendation are super helpful, coming from a counselor, an academic, someone in the academic arena, letting us know a little bit more about you. But again, academics does play that large role. And we do have information about our typical profile on our website. But once again, starting last year, going into this year, test scores are not required for consideration or ultimately acceptance into our honors program. So we can also connect students with current honors students on campus if they want to chat with them about their experience, maybe specifically from New Jersey, talk about classes, how their time has been in the honors program. I think that's a great way to learn a lot about what that experience could be like.
Okay, so we just hit the 1 hour mark, so I'm going to wrap this up with one final question, and I think that they also did stay for a couple minutes afterwards if you have some individual questions or follow-up questions you want to ask. So to end the program, 5 reps, so let's do this. Starting with Scranton, what would you tell freshmen to do, right, to be prepared, to begin to prepare for the college application process? Rutgers, what would you tell sophomores? Pitt, what would you tell juniors? TCNJ, what words of wisdom do you have for seniors? And University of South Carolina, if there was just one piece of advice that you could give any student regarding the college application process, what would it be? You're welcome.
Yeah, so for first-year students, I would just advise you keep your options open. Don't write anything off yet. You're so early in the process. The world is kind of your oyster, and you have lots of choices. Keep in mind what type of school generally you might be aiming for when you're building your course schedules and when you're getting involved with different activities outside of school in your community or sports, jobs you're doing, anything like that. But I would say keep your options open, don't write anything off. Start having some of the conversations, but don't freak out either. You're definitely not behind at this point. Anything that you do at this point, you're kind of setting yourself apart from probably the most of the rest of your peers.
So for sophomores, you're out of your first year trying to figure out high school. Maybe you're sort of into things, and maybe you want to start thinking about, would I like to continue this for the next couple of years? Because I think one of the things that we all look for is continuation of activities, so commitment. But it's still okay to sample things and try some things out, maybe just thinking about what you might want to continue into junior year. I would also say, don't worry about this college process yet. Be your high school student, do your classes, challenge yourself. Maybe if you weren't sure what you were going to be able to do freshman year, you step it up a little bit as a sophomore, if you're able to, and see how things go. And just be a sophomore. Don't worry about the college stuff yet.
And when you become a junior, then you can kind of start talking about the process a little bit. That's when you might want to use that time to do some family bonding by visiting every school up and down the eastern seaboard like we did with my daughter. But it was a great experience. We had some great memories. That's where you can get some of those essay topics from, fun things you did while looking for colleges. And then you want to also reach out to your guidance